Welcome, everyone, to the Ramana Maharshi International Satsang based in sunny San Diego, California today. And let us welcome our special monthly guest from London, the International Ramana Maharshi scholar, Michael James. Michael, welcome.
Uh, Thank you.
It's always good to see you.
Right.
We're about to round out yet another year with you being a guest, and we love having you here for those 2 hours. For those of you watching us on YouTube, Michael joins us every first Sunday of the month for 2 hours, beginning at 10 a.m. California time. If you would like to join us here live on Zoom with Michael, you are certainly welcome to do so. We have a slew of new people today joining us. Just write to me, Ted at newsguy55 at AOL.com, and I will put you on our mailing list. And by the way, we also study Ramana's diverse teachings at the same time, 10 a.m. California time every Sunday, that Michael is not here. And you're also equally invited to join us then as well. So let's get started now with our first question. And Michael, it comes from Nervari Tanana. And in the 11th paragraph of Non-Air, Bhagavan has spoken about svarūpa smarana. On the surface, the words appear to be mutually contradictory, Michael, as smarana is, in its usual sense, refers to a recollection or remembrance which involves the mind, whereas svarūpa is beyond the mind. So, question, how does the mind recollect or remember svarūpa, which is beyond the mind? Michael.
Right. Uh, when we say svarūpa is beyond the mind, we need to understand the sense in which that is made. That is, svarūpa means what we actually are. That is infinite being awareness, Satchit. So it is beyond the mind in the sense that it is beyond the limits of the mind. However, svarūpa is what is always shining within the mind as our own being, I am. So though it is beyond the limits of the mind, it is ever available for us to attend to. Yes, in the 11th paragraph, Bhagavan talks of svarūpa smarana. Smarana literally means remembrance. So it means remembrance, self-remembrance, or remembrance of what we actually are. Remembrance in this context means holding in our mind our svarūpa. So holding in our mind means attending to it. In the previous paragraph of Nana, Bhagavan used the term svarūpa dhyana, which means meditation on svarūpa, which is the same as svarūpa smarana. They both mean attending to svarūpa. Svarūpa is what we actually are, which is that mere being awareness, I am, which is clearly shining as our very essence. It's ever shining. That is the one thing that exists and shines, not only in waking and dream, but also in sleep, is this fundamental awareness I am. So that is what svarūpa is. But now we don't experience svarūpa as it actually is, because we experience it mixed and conflated with adjuncts. That is, we don't experience ourselves as just I am. We experience ourselves as I am this body. I am this person consisting of 5 sheaths. So 5 sheaths means the physical form of the body, the life that animates it, the mind, intellect, and will that function within it. These 5 make up these 5 what are called the 5 sheaths. And as Bhagavan says in the 5th paragraph of Nana, sorry, the 5th verse of Ulladu Napadu, Udal Panchakosa Uru, the body is a form of 5 sheaths. So when Bhagavan says ego is the false awareness, I am this body. In other words, ego is that which is always aware of itself as I am this body. What he means by body is not just the physical form of the body, but all the 5 sheaths. So because these 5 sheaths are what are called upadi or adjuncts. limiting adjuncts. So they are what we mistake ourselves to be. So as ego, we are the infinite being awareness, seemingly limited as this set of adjuncts. So as ego, we're always aware of ourselves, but we're not aware of ourselves as we actually are. So because we're always aware of ourselves, we can always attend to ourselves. We can always fix our mind on ourselves. We can always remember ourselves. We can always practice self-remembrance or self-meditation, svarūpa smarana or svarūpa dhyana. And this is all that is necessary. That is the sentence in which Bhagavan uses this term svarūpa smarana in the 11th paragraph of Nana. What he says in that sentence is, until one attains svarūpa, if one holds fast to uninterrupted svarūpa smarana, uninterrupted self-remembrance, that alone is sufficient. Adu Andre Podum. So this is all that is required. That is, these various terms that Bhagavan used in, as I say, in the 10th paragraph, he uses the term svarūpa dhyana, which means meditation on ourself. In the 11th paragraph, he uses this term svarūpa smarana, remembrance of ourself. In the 13th paragraph, he uses the term Atma-vichara, which means thinking of ourselves. But all these essentially mean, all these terms, they essentially mean just attending to ourselves, or being self-attentive. And that is the practice of self-investigation, because in the 16th paragraph of Nana, he defines what he means by Atma-vichara or self-investigation as always keeping the mind on oneself. So keeping the mind on oneself means keeping our attention on ourselves. So that is what he also refers to as self-remembrance or svarūpa smarana, self-meditation or self-contemplation or svarūpa dhyana. So we shouldn't think of svarūpa as something unknown. Yes, it is beyond the mind in the sense that it is not limited by the mind. It is beyond the limits of the mind, but it is the underlying reality of the mind, of ego. So it is what we actually are. So it is ever known, ever shining. Is this a clear answer to that question? Does anyone have any questions about this?
Michael, yeah, Michael is beautiful. I have always wondered who is doing the self-inquiry, and during inquiry, the mind runs away and something arises in you that wants to bring it back. Are these the same things? Is the mind doing the inquiry? Is the mind bringing it back? And is mind focusing on its nature, svarūpa?
Yes, it is mind that is doing it. But when we say mind is doing it, we need to be clear what we mean by the term mind. In this context, the term mind is synonymous with ego. That is, if we use the term mind in its broadest sense, as Bhagavan says in the verse 18 of Upadesha Undiyya, enangale manam, that is, thoughts alone of a mind. So what he implies by that is mind in its broadest sense is a collective name for a collective term that refers to the totality of all thoughts. And by thoughts, he means mental phenomena of any kind whatsoever. So all thoughts, feelings, and so on are all included in that term. So that's the broadest sense in which the term mind is used. But then in the next sentence, he says, of all, implying of all thoughts, the thought called I alone is the root. The thought called I is ego. That is the. And why does Bhagavan say that is the root? Because all other thoughts are objects known by ego, whereas ego is the subject. So ego is the only thought that is endowed with awareness. Since all other thoughts exist only in the view of ego, ego is the essence of the mind. So he concludes that verse by saying, therefore mind is I. What is called mind is I, and there I refers to ego. So ego is the essence of the mind. So ego is the knowing element of the mind. So when we talk about the mind investigating itself, that means ego investigating itself. And why is it ego that is doing this? Obviously, svarūpa, what we actually are, doesn't need to investigate itself. It's only because as ego, we mistake ourselves to be something other than what we actually are. We therefore need to investigate ourselves to find out what we actually are. And in order to investigate ourselves, we need to fix our attention on what we essentially are, on that fundamental being awareness that ever shines as I am. So we are attending to our own being, which is our fundamental awareness, I am. Is that clear?
Yes, Michael, it's clear. One quick last question. When the mind wanders, something reminds us to bring it back. Is it important to focus on that? Is that part of the help?
Okay, before I answer that, can I just say one more thing in this context? Another important point Bhagavan clarified is that ego is ego so long as it's attending to things other than itself. But when it turns its attention back to itself, to the extent to which it attends to itself, it thereby subsides. And if it attends to itself wholly, exclusively, thereby ceasing to be aware of anything else, it remains as svarūpa. So ego and svarūpa are not two different things. That is, what ego essentially is only svarūpa. But it is svarūpa mixed and conflated with adjuncts. We seem to be this set of adjuncts, this person, this body we take ourselves to be, only so long as we're attending to other things. To the extent to which we attend to ourselves, we thereby subside. And if we attend to ourselves exclusively, in other words, if we focus our attention on ourselves so keenly that we cease to be aware of anything else, we thereby subside completely and dissolve back into our being, and thereby remain as our being, which is svarūpa. Yes, sorry, I just wanted to clarify that. Can you ask your question again? Something about what reminds us?
Yeah, there's something in us that reminds us that the mind is running away again, and then we fetch it back.
Well, we start off the investigation with the intention to attend to ourselves only. When our mind wanders away, sooner or later we notice that it's wandered away. If we are very vigilant, we'll notice as soon as the mind attention begins to deviate away towards anything else, and we catch it and bring it back. So it is what reminds us, that is, we remind ourselves, we remember our intention is to attend to ourselves. So it is, we can say it's ego reminding itself. But what gives us the liking to attend to ourselves is the inner light of clarity. That is this fundamental awareness, which is what we actually are. So it is, we can also say it is grace that is reminding us. That grace is nothing other than svarūpa itself. Because it's svarūpa, but it's grace that gives us the grace is nothing but the infinite love that we as svarūpa have for ourselves as svarūpa. So that grace is our real nature. So long as we are directing our mind away from ourselves, attending to other things, we are turning our back on grace, so to speak. We're ignoring grace. When we have that love to attend to ourselves, grace that is, we are thereby yielding ourselves to grace, and grace will give us the clarity to notice as soon as our attention gets deviated away from ourselves, and will give us the love to bring it back.
Michael, is there any point in focusing on that grace, or just go back to self-attention?
Sri Ram, this has to be your last question. We have 20 people waiting.
Yeah, okay. Grace is not something other than ourselves. Grace is what we actually are. Grace is svarūpa.
Very good. Thank you both, Sri Ram and Michael, for those answers. Let's go to our second question, and we're loaded with them today, both in the chat box. There's about 6, and I have about 10 here. Ronnie wrote, and her question is to you, Michael, is the awareness in deep sleep and the awareness witnessed in meditation the same? In one case, the body is asleep. The other case, of course, the body is not asleep. I understand, she says, that in both these situations, it is temporary. It is only akin to manolaya and not manonasha, which is our goal. Michael.
Right. There is only one awareness. So they're not two or more awarenesses. So awareness in this context means that which is aware. That which is aware in its pure condition is what is called pure awareness. That is svarūpa. That is what we actually are. And that is what we are seeking to know. But when that same awareness is mixed and conflated with adjuncts, as I am this body, that is ego. So it's not it's pure awareness and ego are two different awarenesses. Pure awareness is awareness as it actually is. Ego is pure awareness mixed and conflated with other things. So ego, what ego essentially is just pure awareness. That is why ego is called Chit Jada Granti. Chit means that pure awareness. Jada means what is not aware. That is referring to the 5 sheaths, the person we take ourselves to be. Granti means not. So when ego is neither pure awareness, nor is it the adjuncts. It's a conflation of the two. It's a mixture of the two. That's why ego is the not, the entanglement of chit and jada. But the essence of ego is chit. So when we are, what exists and shines in sleep is only pure awareness. What we are attending to when we're investigating ourselves is that same awareness. Though it is now mixed and conflated with adjuncts, we are trying to focus only on the awareness, not on the adjuncts. As Bhagavan says in one passage in Maharsha's Gospel, he explains that ego is what is called Chit Jada Granti, and he explains what that means. And then he says, in your investigation into the source of the ahamvriti, that's the source of ego, you take the essential chit aspect of ego. In other words, the essential awareness aspect of ego. Therefore, this investigation leads unfailingly to the pure awareness that we actually are. So what we are to attend to when we're investigating ourselves is that mere awareness I am, the same awareness that is shining in sleep. And that is the only awareness there actually is. Ego seems to be something other than that pure awareness because of because of being mixed with, conflated with adjuncts. Just like the snake and the rope are not two different things. It's only one thing. What it actually is just a rope. What it seems to be is a snake. So ego is like the snake. It's the pure awareness seeming to be something other than what it actually is. So that is the only awareness there is. That is what we need to focus on when we are investigating ourselves or when we're meditating. We have to meditate only on ourselves, only on that fundamental awareness I am. And then in the next sentence, in one case the body is asleep, and in the other case the body is not asleep. The body need not concern us. When we're investigating ourselves, we are we are not concerned about whether the body is awake or asleep. That is, the body is an object. We are trying to attend to the reality of the subject. And then in the next sentence, Rani says, I understand that in both these situations, it's temporary. Well, yes, sleep obviously is temporary. And so long as we're practicing self-investigation, we are still in a time-bound state. So long as we're having to make an effort to attend to ourselves, yes, it is temporary. But when we attend to ourselves so keenly that we become aware of ourselves as we actually are, then it is permanent. And then she says, it's only akin to manolaya. Well, sleep is a state of manolaya. Manolaya means a state of temporary dissolution of mind. Meditation is not a state of manolaya. If we've gone into manolaya, we're no longer meditating. In self-investigation, we are not aiming to go into manolaya, because in manolaya, we can't attend to ourselves. Our aim is to keep our attention fixed on ourselves, but we neither get carried away by thoughts, nor do we subside into sleep. We remain balanced between these two forms of what are called pramada. Pramada means negligence or inattentiveness. That's when our attention gets diverted away from ourselves. We slip into pramada either by being carried away by thoughts or by slipping into sleep. We, in self-investigation, by holding on to that awareness, we thereby avoid getting carried away by thoughts and avoid subsiding in sleep. Yeah, and if we hold on to that awareness firmly enough, we subside completely and dissolve forever back into our source. That is mano-nasa.
Ronnie, does that suffice? I think I saw her log on here.
No, I just have this question about meditation. So when in meditation, you have no sense of identifying with the body or the mind or time and space, and you just suspended, it seems, and then you come back and you realize, oh my God, it's been 2 hours since I went into meditation. In that state, is that manolaya or manonasha, which is temporary?
Well, if any temporary dissolution of mind is manolaya, but if we go into manolaya in meditation, we are no longer meditating. So we need to hold on to self-attentiveness and thereby avoid going into manolaya. Manolaya is a state of dissolution of mind. So long as we're holding on to that awareness, we are avoiding going into manolaya. But if we hold on to that awareness firmly enough, if we focus our attention so keenly on that awareness, but we cease to be aware of anything else, then we dissolve, but not in laya, we dissolve in nasa. It's a permanent dissolution. So the aim in self-investigation, we are not trying to go into it. Many people mistake a state of absence of thoughts or a calmness of mind to be self-attentiveness. That is not self-attentiveness. We need to be focusing our attention on ourselves so keenly that we thereby avoid slipping into a state of manolaya. But ego subsides, but not in laya. It just subsides, and if we focus our attention on ourselves keenly enough, it will dissolve in mano-nasa, which is permanent. If we slip into manolaya, that means we've lost our hold on self-attentiveness. So long as we're holding on to self-attentiveness, we cannot go into manolaya. But it sometimes happens when we're attending to ourselves, but we slip into a state, a sleep-like state, which is sometimes called kevala nirvikalpa samadhi. But that's not our aim in self-investigation. That is just an unnecessary diversion, an unnecessary That is, we cannot be attending to ourselves when we're in laya, because there's no mind to attend. So we don't make any progress so long as the mind is in laya. That's why Bhagavan used to tell that story of the yogi on the banks of the Ganga, who was very adept in going into samadhi. The samadhi he was going into was Kevala Nirvikalpa Samadhi. That's a state in which the mind subsides in a sleep-like state. But the reason Bhagavan told that story, what he intended to illustrate by that story, is the fact that vasanas are not destroyed, however long we may remain in that Kevala Nirvikalpa Samadhi, because that sadhu, he was so adept in going into that state, but once when he went into that state, he remained in that state for 300 years. But when he woke up from that state, the first thing he did was to angrily ask for water, because just before going into the samadhi, he had asked his disciple to bring water from the nearby Ganga. And his disciple had gone to bring the water. When he came back with the water, the sadhu the yogi had gone into Nirvikalpa Samadhi again. He remained in that state for 300 years. When he woke up, the first thing he asked, "Where's my water?" Of course, the disciple had passed away long ago. The river had even changed its course, so it was some miles away. But though he had remained for so many hundreds of years in that state of Nirvikalpa Samadhi, in other words, Manolaya, even the most superficial thought in his mind, the last thought was in his mind before he went in there, even that thought was not eradicated. So what to say of all the vasanas? In other words, vasanas, being in Nirvikalpa Samadhi, we cannot progress spiritually so long as we're in Nirvikalpa Samadhi, because it's a state like sleep. It's a state in which mind is dissolved. Since mind is dissolved, mind cannot be eradicating vasanas. How vasanas how we weaken and eventually overcome the vasanas is by holding on to self-attentiveness. We thereby avoid being swayed by the Vishaya Vasana, the inclination to attend to other things. So the more we hold on to self-attentiveness, the stronger the Sat Vasana, the inclination to hold on to our being, becomes, and the weaker the Vishaya Vasanas become. But that can be done only when we're attending to ourselves. We cannot attend to ourselves in Manolaya because there's no mind there to attend to it. Is that clear?
Michael, I've got to thank you for that, because one of the things that, when I used to meditate for hours together, I found it very addictive. So I wanted to go back into that state. And if there is manonasha, then there is no addiction of any sign. You see? And so I understand the limitations of going into that manolaya state of samadhi, which is not beneficial to the actual cognizance of trying to be awake and reaching a state of manonasha.
Yeah. We are not trying to be awake. We are just trying to hold on to that fundamental awareness. So long as we're holding on to that, we will not fall asleep. We will not subside in a state of manolaya of any kind.
And this also explains why, just in the waking state like now, if I'm still holding on to that I am, I'm still meditating.
Yes. Meditation
Thank
is
you for that clarification. That is very important for me.
Meditation is nothing to do with closing the eyes and sitting with back upright. Meditation, what is to meditate is the mind. And what we are to meditate on is just that fundamental awareness I am, our own being.
Yeah. Thank you, Ronnie. Appreciate it very much. Michael, thank you.
Another thing to understand about this, that is, effort is required to attend to ourselves, because the natural flow of the mind is to go outwards, to attend to things other than itself. That is, the very nature of ego is to always grasp form, as Bhagavan expressed it in verse 25 of Aptu. In other words, it's always to attend to things other than itself. So to attend to ourselves requires effort. So if we go into a state where several hours pass without any effort and without even being aware of the passing of time, we have gone into manolaya. We are not making the effort to hold on to self-attentiveness. Self-attentiveness always requires effort. Until the very final moment where the one who is making effort itself dissolves, and we will just be consumed by that. But until we are completely consumed by the infinite clarity of pure awareness, effort is required to hold on to that self-attentiveness.
Michael, you ready for the next one?
Yes.
It comes from Amy. I don't think Amy's here unless she goes by a different name on Zoom. Anyway, she says briefly, when thinking deeply and slowly, I am, only I am, works for me. I am, just I am also works, but Bhagavan said that I am that I am explains this the best. The that part feels like there's a subject and an object. In absolute reality, there is only I am. What am I missing, she asks.
Okay, we need to understand in the context in which Bhagavan says, I am, but I am explains it best. These are not Bhagavan's words. Both terms Bhagavan generally used. In Tamil, he said nan nan. In Sanskrit, he said aham aham. These terms mean I am I. There's no explicit word there for am, which is why it's often translated wrongly as I-I. But in Tamil, when you say, for example, I am a man, nan manidan. You don't say am. Am is not necessary. You can say it, but if you want to say it, you have to say I am as a man. You have to say nan manidanai irakarein. But the natural way of saying it in Tamil is to say without the am. So, for example, the question nana or nanya means I who. The am is understood there. Bhagavan often refers to nan it deham. I am this body. Am is not explicit there, it's understood. So when Bhagavan says nan nan, he means I am I. Likewise in Sanskrit, aham aham means I am I. In Sanskrit also, koham, for example, means who I. The am is understood there. Shivoham means Shiva I. That it's understood Shiva is I. Soham, he is I. So the verb, the copula, the verb to be is not necessary there because it's understood. So in Tamil, and Bhagavan said nan nan. In Sanskrit, he said aham aham, which means I am I. The context in which he said I am that I am explains it best. He was pointing out that in the Upanishads there are certain phrases that are called mahavakyas. The mahavakyas are terms that identify, that reveal our real identity, what we actually are, such as tattvamasi, you are that, in which that refers to Brahman. Aham brahmasmi, I am Brahman. I am Atma Brahman, this self is Brahman. Prajnanam Brahman, awareness is Brahman. So all these are statements, but what we actually are is Brahman. But Bhagavan said better than that is the mere, rather than, because if we say I am Brahman, there is no such thing as Brahman other than I. So a better way of expressing it, rather than saying I am Brahman, is to say I am I. The reason that these Mahavakyas are there is because generally we take Brahman or God or the reality or whatever we want to call it, we take it to be something other than ourselves. So we seek it outside ourselves. So the aim of the Mahavakyas is to turn our attention back to ourselves. So it is said that Brahman you're searching for, you are that Tattvamasi. Yeah, that means that is you. Or not even that is you. That you are is the exact meaning of Tattvamasi. So these Mahavakyas are intended to turn our attention away from some idea we have of Brahman as something external to ourselves, to turn our attention back to ourselves. But once we've understood that Brahman is what we actually are, we need to focus only on ourselves, only on I, because there's no such thing as Brahman other than I. And if we follow this, if we go deep enough in this investigation, ego will thereby be destroyed. And when ego is destroyed, Bhagavan said, what then shines forth is the pure awareness, I am I. That is, as ego, we're aware of ourselves as I am this person, I am this body. But when we become aware of ourselves as we actually are, we know I am only I. I'm nothing other than I. So the context in which Bhagavan referred to I am that I am, that is a statement from the Bible, from the Old Testament of the Bible, when Moses saw God in the form of a burning bush. And God said, go to my people and tell them to leave Egypt, or whatever it was. Moses said, who shall I say has sent me? And God replies, how it's translated in the King James Version of the Bible is I am that I am. The actual words in Hebrew are, I don't know if I can pronounce it correctly, I noted it down somewhere. The actual words in Hebrew are well, I don't know, it's E-H-Y-E, that means am, and then A-S-H-E-R, that means that's a relative pronoun, and then am again. So what it means is am what am, very literally, but in the am, I is understood. So I am what I am is more accurate than saying I am that I am. But I think the sense in which it is used is I am is what I am. Because if we take it just as I am what I am, that's a tautology. Everything is what it is. It would not be an informative statement. It's considered to be such an important, it's God revealing his true nature. So God is not going to just give if God intends to reveal his real nature, he's not going to give an evasive answer saying, I am what I am, because that doesn't tell us anything. But what he said, I think the intended meaning is, I am is what I am. Because in the next sentence in that same passage of the Bible, say that I am has sent me to you. So he's referring to himself as I am. So I am is the real identity of God. That's the context in which it's said in the Bible. The reason Bhagavan said that explains it best is better than saying I am Brahman. To say I am I is a deeper explanation. That's why he said it explains it best. What we actually are is nothing but I. I am I. And that I is God, that I is Brahman, yes. But for when we're investigating ourselves, we need to focus only on I. We need to forget about God, forget about Brahman. We need to understand, or forget about the words God or Brahman. We need to understand what Brahman is, what God is nothing but I, and therefore focus only on I. And that I is what we actually are. So I am I. So,
Amy, are you first?
Amy's question, what am I missing? I don't think she's missing anything except the fact that when Bhagavan said, I am that I am, explains it best, he was referring to that passage in the Bible, which is very difficult to translate. I mean, it's been people have translated it in so many different ways, but I think the intended meaning is, I am is what I am.
Well, let's see if Melissa has a comment or a question on this topic. Melissa.
Yes, I've also contemplated that phrase "I am that I am" many, many times, and my sense of it is that the that in the phrase is just a statement of being. So it's basically saying, "I am is all there is. I am is the I am." That is all that exists, because in English that can also be simply a statement of being.
Yes, but it's not a statement, it is a statement of our own being. That's the important thing.
Yes,
it's a first person being.
Yes, absolutely.
It is also a statement of being, but it's referring to the being of other things. This is referring to our own being. In the ancient Greek translation of the Old Testament, which is very ancient, it's before the time of Christ, that phrase was translated as in Greek as "I am the being." But I think that doesn't fully capture it, because the main point is, I am is what I am.
Yes,
I think that's the
yes.
intended meaning.
Absolutely, but for myself, I take that recognizing that I am is not other than all there is. So yes, okay, thank you.
More precise than saying I am is not other than all that is. All that is nothing other than I am. I am is the basic reality. All that is, all the multiplicity is nothing but an appearance.
Yes.
So I am is the rope, the multiplicity is the snake. So the multiplicity is nothing but the one, but the one is not the multiplicity. The snake is a rope, but the rope is not a snake.
Yes, although when the snake,
it is the rope that appears as a snake, but the rope is not a snake. Yeah.
Right, of course. As the snake becomes transparent, it becomes yes. As a snake becomes transparent, it becomes clear that it's never been other than a rope.
Yeah.
Okay, guys. All right, Michael, you want to go on to the next question?
Yes.
Gotcha. I'm not sure if this person's name is pronounced with a hard G or not.
Gargi.
Gargi, it's not. Okay, Gargi writes, at times it is quite easy to abide in self. For example, for several weeks after a trip to Ramana's ashram, it is quite easy and very joyful to engage in self-enquiry. However, this ride or this excitement following a visit to Ramana's ashram quickly runs out, and then the vasanas come rushing out and are so strong that the mind is continuously pushed outwards. What would be your advice, Michael, regarding how to approach the strongly outgoing mind? And one other comment is added here: the stark change in my mental state before and immediately following a visit to Ramana's ashram, and then its reversal after some time to strong outgoing tendencies seems to be beyond my control. Question: is praying to Bhagavan for help with the mind and vasanas that are out of control of any meaning? Are they meaningful?
Well, quickly to answer the last question, yes, praying to Bhagavan for help is always good, but our prayer to Bhagavan for help needs to be sincere. So if we ask Bhagavan for help, we need to be trying our best to help ourselves, and then he will help us. If we are trying to help ourselves, he will certainly help us. But if we are simply asking for help and not taking the trouble, not making the effort to help ourselves, in other words, if we're not making the effort to attend to ourselves, our prayer is not sincere, and the help will not be forthcoming. So whatever prayer is meaningful if it is sincere. So it's only if we are drowning in the ocean, if we cry out for help, our cry for help is meaningful only if we're at least trying to keep afloat. We're doing our best to save ourselves, and then our asking for help is meaningful. If we are simply not bothering even to help ourselves, then asking anyone else for help is not going to, it's meaningless. So prayer needs to be sincere, which means we have to try our best to help ourselves. And if we're trying our best to help ourselves, that itself is the most powerful of all prayers. And Bhagavan will certainly come to our, I mean, Bhagavan is always helping us. He was, but the help, when we are trying to attend to ourselves, we are yielding ourselves to his grace. So we are yielding ourselves to the help that he is always giving us. Coming back to the first question about exactly the same question people used to ask Bhagavan. I think it's recorded in either in talks or day by day somewhere, maybe Maharshi's Gospel somewhere. Someone actually asked almost exactly the same question. Bhagavan, when I come here and I'm hearing your presence, it's easy to turn my mind within. But when I go away, it carries on for a while, and then I lose it, and then I get carried away by all the pressures of day-to-day life. I'm not quoting verbatim. I'm just some question to that effect. It asked. I can't remember exactly what Bhagavan answered, but I think the gist of what Bhagavan would have answered is if we find it easy to attend to ourselves when we are visiting Bhagavan's ashram, that help is it is circumstantial because of the circumstances that are favorable. It's helpful, but we need to be able to make that our own. We shouldn't rely on external circumstances. The external circumstances can give us a push, but we need to persevere in trying. So when we leave Ramanashram and we go back to our normal life, and all the pressures of life will be there, all the problems at work, the problems of in the family, paying the bills, paying the rent, all these, so many, I mean, everyone faces the pressures of life in so many different ways. It's easy to forget that our aim is to hold on to self-attentiveness. So we need to be making effort in order to make that. I think the question that was asked to Bhagavan is, my mind is at peace while I'm here and for a short while afterwards, but then I lose that peace until I come back here again. Bhagavan said you have to make that peace your own. You have to make it your own means you have to make effort to hold on to that self-attentiveness. So the question, what would be your advice for is how to approach the strongly outgoing mind? Well, if we are honest with ourselves, I think most of us will have to admit we have a strongly outward going mind, because this is the very nature of the mind to be outward going. So this is a problem we all face. So the only way to curb the outward going mind is to try more and more and more to hold on to self-attentiveness. And as Bhagavan says, what's it matter however many thoughts arise? That means what's it matter however many times the mind gets diverted outwards? As and when each thought arises, it's necessary then and there to turn our attention back within. Well, how he words it is, it's necessary to investigate to whom of these thoughts. Investigating to whom means turning our attention back to ourselves, the one to whom the thoughts occur. And then we need to hold on to that self-attentiveness until the mind again gets pulled outwards, and again we need to draw it back. So the only way to curb the strongly outward going mind is to persevere in the practice. There is no substitute for the practice. Practice of self-attentiveness is absolutely essential. And it doesn't matter how many times we fail, we need to keep on trying. So long as we're trying, we're moving in the right direction. So we shouldn't worry about failure, because if we weren't trying, we wouldn't fail. So the very fact that we're failing means at least we're trying. And the fact that we're trying means that we are moving in the right direction. Sadhu Om used to say, Bhagavan hasn't asked you to succeed, he's just asked you to try. Success is in Bhagavan's hands. He will see that you he will see to it that you succeed, provided you try. So we have to be sincere in trying our best to hold on to self-attentiveness. No matter how many times we fail, we need to keep on trying. And success is assured in the end.
Don't know if Garji's here or not. I don't think so.
No.
Okay, Jacques got a question on this topic.
Yes, Michael, comment and your response, isn't it even that when conditions are unfavorable, that's what we really need to go through? It sort of reminds me of, in many traditions, they say like a monk will go into a cave and in meditation and forget whatever the tradition, and will no longer be troubled by sexual temptations. And for 20 years in the cave, he's attained celibacy, and or as said in Vedanta, brahmacharya, in one way of looking at it. And then, but when he comes out of the 20 years and goes back into a city, bingo, all the sexual impulses just come rushing back in, or vasanas. So it's when things are unfavorable that's when we really, it's sort of like saying, I like you when you give me everything I want, but when you don't give me what I want, then I don't like you anymore.
Yeah. I mean, it's when we're one analogy that is given, Olympic runners, they will train running in sand. If you try to run up a sand dune, you have to work really hard because the sand is constantly slipping under your feet. And so that strengthens the legs more than if you're just walking on or just running on a flat surface. So it's when we're up against opposition, but that is if we continue trying to hold on to self-attentiveness in spite of any amount of unfavorable external circumstances, that will strengthen us more than just being calm and peaceful when we're in Bhagavan's presence.
Thank you.
All righty. I don't see any other hands up, so why don't we go to the next question? It's from McNair. Okay with you? All right, here we go. McNair writes to you, Michael, I understand intellectually, or at least I think I do, that things unfold as they are meant to unfold, and that things are not meant to happen, will not happen, etc. But the more useful part of Ramana's teachings for me is the process of self-investigation. In this regard, when one is facing an uncertain health diagnosis or that of a loved one, can you give suggestions about how one might best utilize the process of self-investigation that will help somebody to rest more readily as the self? Also, how might this help one with detachment or help to calm the upset, emotional, and wavering, restless mind? In less intense situations, I find it fairly straightforward to practice self-investigation. But in highly stressful situations like that mentioned, the impact and helpfulness of self-investigation often eludes me, and McNair is here to hear your
Right.
answer.
Okay. Well, this is very much what we've been talking about.
Right.
When circumstances are favorable, it may seem relatively easy to hold on to self-attentiveness, but the real challenge comes when the external circumstances are challenging. So we may not, it may seem that we are failing, but what is important is that we keep on trying to hold on to self-attentiveness in spite of any amount of external distractions. And in this context, because McNair began by saying, I understand intellectually that things unfold as they're meant to, and that things are not meant to happen will not happen. The reason Bhagavan taught us this, or the purpose of this teaching that Bhagavan gave us, is that we need not concern ourselves with external things. That is, whatever is to happen is going to happen. Come what, I mean, nothing can stop it happening. What is not going to happen is not going to happen, however much we may want it to happen and try to make it happen. This is what Bhagavan said in the note he wrote for his mother. What is Endrum naduvadadu, envichikanum naduvadu. That means what is never to happen will not happen in spite of any amount of effort. Nadupadu entare seyanum niladu. What is to happen will not stop in spite of any amount of obstacle. So there's nothing we can do to change what is meant to happen, or to make something that is not meant to happen, to make it happen. There's nothing we can try, but we won't succeed. So if we understand this, and if we're firmly convinced of this, this helps us a lot to reduce the outward going pressure of the mind. Because when things that are happening in the external world cause anxiety, we want to try to solve the external problems, we want to try to we want to try to have a favorable outcome or whatever. But being concerned about external things is of no use, because everything is going to happen as it's meant to happen, and nothing that is not meant to happen is going to happen. So we do not have to worry about any of these things. The only thing we need to be concerned about is attending to ourselves. Some people, when they hear this, they say, oh, but if you have that attitude, then you won't make any, you won't do your duty or anything. That is what we are meant to do, we will be made to do. As Bhagavan said in the first sentence of that note to his mother, according to the prarabdha of each one, he who is for that, being in the heart of each one, will make them act. So we will be made to do whatever actions we need to do in accordance with destiny. So we need not worry about these things at all. The only concern we need to have is attending to ourselves. So what Bhagavan has taught us about the law of karma, if we understand it correctly and are convinced by it, it will reduce a lot of, it will reduce the how to say, the vaham, the momentum of outward going thoughts. That is where still our mind will be going outward, still will be thinking of things, but the impetus with which we go outwards will reduce if we firmly believe, we firmly accept what Bhagavan has taught us about the law of karma. So understanding that is, and not only understanding it, but being firmly convinced by the words of Bhagavan will help us a lot to turn within. Because if we think that external things depend on us, then we'll be making effort for external things. We'll be making effort to avoid this and to achieve that. But all our efforts for external things are futile. They're not what is destined to happen in our life from the moment we're born to the moment we die. And for not only our life, the life of everyone, it's all predetermined. The only thing we achieve by concerning ourselves with these external things and trying to achieve this or that, trying to avoid this or that, the only thing we achieve, we are creating more. We are, because we're acting according to our will. The actions we do according to our will are what are called agamya. Agamya is what bears fruit. So we are just accumulating more fruit to be experienced in future. So we need not concern ourselves at all. Yes, we may have an uncertain health diagnosis, or sometimes those who are dear to us may have an uncertain health diagnosis. Of course, we should do whatever we should do the sensible thing. We should go to the doctors. We should take whatever treatment is there. But we shouldn't think that we can change what is destined to happen. That is, as sometimes people ask Sadhu Om, if everything is already predetermined, why should we take medicine or any treatment for a disease? He said, the disease comes according to destiny. The treatment also comes according to destiny. So we should just go with the flow as far as external things are concerned. If there's a diagnosis and treatment is available, take the treatment. If there's no treatment available, okay, just accept the fact that whatever's going to happen is going to happen. So we need to wean our mind off its concern about external things. Things are going to happen as they're going to happen, whether we like it or not. How long we are destined to live in this body, how long each other person is destined to live in their body, it's all predetermined. There's nothing we can do about it. And if we're destined to live a healthy life, we will live a healthy life. If we're destined to live an unhealthy life, we'll live an unhealthy life. So we need not concern ourselves about these things. All we need to do is to try more and more and more to turn our attention within. And the more we turn our attention within, the less the detachment will come automatically. So what Bhagavan has taught us about the law of karma is an aid to help us to cultivate the detachment. And we cultivate the detachment by trying our best to turn the mind within. Is that a clear answer, McNair?
Yes, Michael, I appreciate it. I guess it brings up two thoughts, and one is about surrender. And Ted and I had talked briefly about this prior to the show, that it seems like this involves surrender. And how do we get to surrender except through being adept at self-investigation?
Exactly.
And the other is, if everything's predestined, well, in relation to, say, a family member who has illness, what use is prayer then? Praying for someone. Is there a place for that as well?
If we pay close, well, if we follow Bhagavan's example, what we should pray for is for our own subsidence. Praying for external things, if we want to pray in connection with external things, we can pray to have the strength to accept whatever happens as Bhagavan's sweet will. Praying to change the external events means we are trying to assert our will. In the path of surrender, our aim is to surrender our will to Bhagavan's will. If we're asking Bhagavan to do the things we want him to do, we're asking him to surrender his will to our will. So prayer for kamyata prayer for the fulfillment of our desires is the very opposite of surrender. If we are truly aim to surrender ourselves, we have no right to pray for anything except for the love to subside back within.
So to get to that point of surrender, we just have to keep practicing the practice.
Exactly, exactly.
Okay. Thank you.
You know, McNair, and this is specifically for Michael too. I've also pursued this question at length with you, with others here on the Sundays when you're not here, and with the studies of as many of Ramana's teachings as I come up with. And I wrote down a way to remind myself when I'm in that same predicament, which I am now with family members. I express it this way, and I just jotted it down so I make it as clear as I know how to make it. And that is, as we focus, just as you said a minute ago, as we focus more and more on self, the self of who I am, then as with all that's illusory in our perceived lives, our worries begin to fade away as our embracing the self grows more intense. Is that a fair way of looking at it? Because that brings me comfort.
Yes. There is in Tirukkural. Tirukkural is a classical Tamil work. It's got advice for all sorts of different situations in life, but there is a section on renunciation, and in that section, one of the verses is to be attached to he who is free of attachment, and by that attachment be free of attachment. Mm-hmm. That is, what is free of attachment is what we actually are, svarūpa, which is Bhagavan. So by being attached to our own reality, we thereby free ourselves from attachment to all other things.
So thus, even our own personal intra-family worries, problems, sorrows, and sadness continually diminish. I don't mean to be insensitive, but they continually diminish as our strength in self grows to the point where we see that self is all there is.
Yes, and we need not think that if we had this attitude, we're going to become uncaring. Actually, the more detached we become, the more caring and loving we will also become.
Thank you for saying that. Yeah. The more detached we become.
Yeah.
Okay. That's great.
Because otherwise, if we are very attached, why we don't want to see our loved ones suffer? Because it causes us to suffer. But as we become detached, we love them because we see they have been given to us by Bhagavan, and so for the sake of Bhagavan, we are taking care of our loved ones, and taking them to be entrusted in our care by him.
Yeah.
And just as they are entrusted in our care, we are entrusted in their care. So with a detached state of mind, you can have more deeply loving relationships if you're really detached than if you're attached. Because if you're strongly attached, your love is tainted with selfishness. To the extent to which we are detached, our love is purged of selfishness.
Well, that is rather surprising for me to hear that from you, and I'm very grateful for it. And I want to conclude by asking McNair if the discussion that he and I had, as texting back and forth, if that helps you, McNair.
Yes, thank you, Ted, and thanks, Michael. Michael, can you put in the chat the name of that piece you were just mentioning, that you referenced? I think.
Sorry, I'm not hearing. Rani, do you mind closing your microphone?
Okay, I don't think I'm muted, so come back on. I think whoever it was, we got it muted now.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask Michael if he could, if it's in English, give us the title of that work where you said about that's included in that work, be attached to he who is free of attachment.
Yeah, that is Tirukkural. T-I-R-U.
Is it in English? Is
will
it in
be
English?
very English translations of it, yes.
Okay, spell.
Spelled TIRU double KURAL.
Thank you.
Carl. Yeah. And you might send that to us, McNair, if you find out an English copy
Okay.
next week or whenever.
Yeah,
Okay.
online, various English translations are available.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll check it out.
And
Very
it's
good.
I can't remember the verse number, but it's the chapter on renunciation. All the
Thank you.
chapters contain 10 verses, and I think there's one chapter that particularly Bhagavan often used to quote from. Other verses also Bhagavan used to quote from, but particularly from that chapter on renunciation.
Okay.
Very
Thank you,
good.
Michael. Thank you, Ted.
And while we're still on this topic, Sri Ram has something on this topic to ask about or comment on.
Michael, Bhagavan's Upadesh Saram has Krityamasti kim swasthitim yataha nashtamanaso krishti yogina. So he's describing his state of Jnani that he has nothing else left to do. Krityamasti kim swasthitim yataha.
Verse 50.
Is that the state that we should emulate, or what? As far as free will and daily practice, we should do nothing but self-inquiry, and everything else will be done through us.
Everything else, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Michael, ready to go on to the next question?
Yes.
We'll take a deep breath. It's a long question, and I'll go through it as carefully as I can. It's from Stephen. I didn't check to see if Stephen's here. Yeah, I see right now. His name is right in front of me. So here we go. Stephen says surrender is important in this teaching. Is there a right and wrong way of doing this, however? He raises several questions here. That's one of them. Can we wrongly surrender to what is not proper to be surrendered to, given that we don't know what it is that we are surrendering to? Is it possible to know if one is surrendering to chaos, madness, and death versus to the unknown, but in the right way? Whatever it is extremely frightening for me, as I am not sure what to do with these when these moments arise. Recall that Bhagavan actually faced physical as well as egoic death, and how could he have known if he was going with the higher versus the lower forces? In this regard, one thinks of Kierkegaard's profound question of whether Abraham's hearing God's command to kill his son was madness versus reality. How could he have known? There is always a false and a true, it seems to me, a false infinite and a true infinite, yet how do we know in that moment? When it is finer, smaller, and quicker than thought, how does one know whether to let go or to hang on? If we knew what we were surrendering to, we wouldn't need to surrender, it seems to me. Also, could you clarify if our prarabdha includes only the events, but not our reactions, or if it includes the events as well as our reactions? And he goes on here, we all have our own temperaments, some of which is moody, some of us are intense, which affects our reactions. So are we responsible for our temperaments, reactions, and beliefs about the events given by prarabdha, or is that also predetermined and we have no choice but to do what we do? I think this gets to the essence of surrender. If we knew for sure, would we need to surrender? That's one more question. And if we're not sure, is it good or bad to surrender? As different as these two figures are, I think both leave us at the threshold or of the leap of faith, possibly into the absurd. And finally, isn't this what makes it so hard for us to take that one step off the ledge, as you have said so many times, Michael?
Okay. If we understand what surrender actually is, there's no such thing as wrong surrender or wrong way of doing surrender. Bhagavan has clarified what surrender is more clearly than any other teachings that I've come across. Bhagavan makes it clear what surrender is. surrender is the non-rising of ego, or in other words, the subsidence of ego. So it's what are we surrendering to? When we as ego subside, we are surrendering to what is real, because this ego is a false awareness. So when when this false awareness subsides, it is surrendering to the real awareness, the pure, the satchit, the pure being awareness, which we can call God or Brahman or svarūpa or whatever. That is what we are surrendering to. But it's not. We need not be so concerned as to what we're surrendering to. What it is we are to surrender. We are to surrender our rising as ego. In order to surrender our rising as ego, we need to start somewhere. So long as we have got strong desires and attachments, we will not be willing to surrender our rising as ego. So in order to be willing to surrender ourselves, we first need to try to surrender our will. We surrender our will to the will of God. People say, how can you surrender your will to the will of God if you don't know what the will of God is? We don't have to be concerned what the will of God is. Whatever happens is the will of God. We have to give up our own likes and dislikes. Stop rising with, I want this, I want that. That is... as Bhagavan says in the 19th paragraph of Nana, likes and dislikes are both to be disliked. We should give up whatever happens. We should give up all our likes and dislikes as far as possible. Of course, we cannot do so entirely because it's the very nature of ego to have likes and dislikes. But if we don't, to the extent possible, give up our likes and dislikes, we will not even begin to be willing to surrender, to subside back within. And that subsiding back within, that is the real surrender. And if we are subsiding, we can't go wrong. There's no wrong place to subside to, because when that is, from what have we risen as ego? We've risen from our being. So when we as ego subside, we subside back into our being. There's no other place for us to subside to. All these dualities, such as good and bad, these come into being only when we rise as ego. This is why, as Bhagavan says in verse 26 of Uludunapadu, if ego comes into being, everything comes into being. If ego is not, everything is not. Everything there means all phenomena, all pairs of opposites. He also refers to these pairs of opposites in verse 9 of Uludunapadu, in which he says that dyads and triads exist holding on to the one. The one means ego. That is, it's only for ego that the dyads and triads exist. The dyads in this context means the pairs of opposites, good and bad, happiness and unhappiness, life and death, existence, non-existence, awareness, non-awareness. All these pairs of opposites, they exist only in the view of ego. And the triads means the three factors of objective knowledge: the knower, which is ego, the known, and the means of knowing. There can't be anything known without a means of knowing it. And there can't be either anything known or any means of knowing it without a knower. So the knower is the root of the other two, and that knower is ego. So all these dualities exist only for ego. So if ego subsides, it brings about the subsidence of all dualities. So we transcend good and bad if we subside back within. Therefore, subsiding back within is the ultimate good. The good which is beyond the duality of good and bad. Stephen, are you here? Is this a clear answer?
Yeah, he's there. Stephen, do you hear us?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, okay, good. Because I never figure out where the microphone is, but all right.
You found it.
Yeah. I guess what Bhagavan is asking us to do is to invert what we consider to be reality completely inside out, completely upside down. What we take as the foreground, which is ourself, the ego, the world, and all its infinite complexities, and to what's in the background is the I am, and he's asking us to invert it so that the background would become the foreground, which is unimaginable to me. It appears to be a cosmic joke, which we're just not in on. Why God would go through the trouble of creating infinite complexity.
In whose
only
view
to
has
say it
God
doesn't
created
really
this
exist.
infinite complexity?
Excuse
Did
me?
God say he's created infinite complexity, or do we say he's created the infinite complexity? The infinite complexity exists in our view. So to whom is all this infinite complexity?
You can't deny that, the body is infinitely complex in terms of all the processes and the diseases and
all these complexities exist in the view of ego. Where is all this complexity in sleep? Do you experience any complexity in sleep?
can't say I do.
So these are all, because they appear and disappear, they're not real. Because something, in order to be real, something must actually, being real means actually existing. What actually exists must always exist. If something comes into existence and ceases to exist, it is not intrinsically existent. It must be borrowing its existence, its semi-existence from something else. So the entire mind, body, and world, they all exist only in the view of ego. So all these things derive their semi-existence from the semi-existence of ourself as ego. And ego derives its semi-existence from the real existence of ourself as we actually are. So what is actually real is only ourself. Everything else is just an appearance, and it appears only in the view of ourself as ego. So if we know ourself as we actually are, ego will thereby be dissolved, and everything that existed in the view of ego will be dissolved, and what will remain is one only without a second, ourself alone. And then it will be clear that none of these things ever actually existed. So the ultimate truth is there is no complexity, there is no creation, there is no God other than ourself. God is our own reality. It is what we actually are when we cease, right? Well, he's always what we actually are. In order to experience him as he is, we need to cease rising as ego. And then we will experience him as nothing other than ourself, the one and only reality. So yes.
Don't you still have to explain the illusion, like why there is this illusion in the first place?
No. Bhagavan said asking why or how is the wrong question. To whom is this illusion? It is to ego. If we investigate this ego, we find there's no such thing at all. Then there's nothing left to explain. Bhagavan's teachings are extremely radical. We need to, in order to accept Bhagavan's teachings, we need to be willing to jettison all our former beliefs and everything we previously took to be real. We have to recognize that it is all just an appearance, and it appears only in the view of ourself as ego. So when we rise as ego, all these things seem to exist. When we do not rise as ego, they do not seem to exist. And
I guess we just can't explain why we arise as ego at all. I guess that's unanswerable.
Bhagavan said, first find the ego and bring it here, then we can find out how it came into being. If you look for it, you won't find it. We seem to be ego only when we're looking at other things. If we look at ourselves, has anyone ever seen ego? Has anyone ever found this ego?
I think, everyone feels that they exist. I mean, so everyone has this illusion, everyone here.
Right. Okay. We need to be, when we talk about, we feel that we exist. We're talking about our being. Yes, our being is real. What is unreal is what we take ourselves to be. So our being, our existence is real. Our identity is false.
Okay, Stephen?
Our entire body, mind, all of that is unreal.
Unreal, yes.
Right.
Because it appears and disappears. How can it be real? If it's real, it has to always be real. That is, whatever comes into being and ceases to be, it must derive its existence from something else. Because if it were intrinsically existent, it could not cease to exist. So whatever comes into being and ceases to be is not intrinsically existent. So it's deriving its existence from something else. Just like gold ornaments. Gold ornaments have no existence of their own. They derive their existence from the existence of gold, their substance. Because the same gold that today is a ring, tomorrow it may be a bangle or a necklace. So the ornaments, the forms are unreal. The substance is real. But of course, gold is not an ultimate substance, because what is the substance gold is made of? It's made of atoms and protons and neutrons or whatever else. So if you go deeper and deeper and deeper, what is the ultimate substance? The ultimate substance is only our self as awareness. Everything derives its seeming existence from the real existence of our self as pure awareness.
Okay.
Okay, Stephen. Thank you very much.
Stephen, I haven't actually answered all your questions. Can I answer some of the other questions that you asked along the way?
Sure. Sure. Yeah.
You refer to Bhagavan actually facing physical death as well as egoic death. In our view, Bhagavan's body died. And the body we take Bhagavan to be, he was the one who said about that afterwards. He said that when that happened, for 20 minutes his body lay there lifeless, and then the life came back to it. But that's the Bhagavan who said that is the Bhagavan who exists in our view as a body. What actually happened when Bhagavan turned his attention back within to find out who am I, he thereby merged forever in the source, in Satchit, and then he remained as Satchit. As Satchit, there is no such thing as ego or body or world or anything. So that is what Bhagavan actually is. But we see Bhagavan as a person. So in our view, that person, even after the ego died, that person, Bhagavan, seemed to have lived for another 54 years. And there are so many stories told about him. He traveled from Madurai to Tiruvannamalai. He was in Patalingam, and his thighs were eaten by insects, and then he was living on the hill. And then his mother came and lived with him, and then his mother passed away, and they moved down to the foot of the hill. All this story is true only in our view, not in his view. Bhagavan said for the jnani, the jnani is like, Bhagavan compared the jnani, there's a verse in Ulladu Anubandham in which Bhagavan compares the jnani to a person sleeping in a cart. Just like the person sleeping in a cart is not aware whether the cart is moving or whether it's at a standstill or whether the bullocks are unyoked. It's all the same to the person who's sleeping in the cart. Likewise, for the jnani who is asleep in the body, the movements of the body, the nishta or the sleep, it doesn't exist at all. So we are seeing Bhagavan as a person, and so we say all these things about Bhagavan. But Bhagavan is not the person he seems to be. That doesn't mean we disrespect that person, because what was shining through that person is the infinite clarity and love which is what Bhagavan really is. So we love Bhagavan not because of the body that he appeared to be, but because of what was shining through that body, which is that infinite ocean of clarity and love, which is our own reality. So that's why we all are naturally attracted to Bhagavan. Regarding that story about Abraham killing his son, that's a very, very crude type of idea of surrender, but God comes and gives you an order and you have to carry it out. That's really not applicable at all in the context of Bhagavan's teaching. In Bhagavan's teachings, what God has commanded us to kill is ego, not any person. That is, what we need to do, what real surrender is the subsidence and dissolution of ego back into its source. Then you ask about prarabdha. Prarabdha is the fruit of our past actions that have been allotted for us to experience in this lifetime. The fruit of the actions are, that is, actions are what we do. The actions that produce the fruit are actions that we do under the sway of our will, under the sway of our vasanas. Those actions bear fruit. The fruit are experiences. So if you do good action, you get a good experience. If you do a bad action, you get a bad experience. And that's the basic idea. But it's not what we experience in this lifetime is not the fruit of the actions we do in this lifetime. They're fruit of actions from previous lifetime. So it's only what we are given to experience that is prarabdha. How we react to it, that is according to our vasanas. So that is, you say, we all have our temperaments. Our temperaments are nothing but an expression of our vasanas. If we have a moody temperament, it's because such are our vasanas. If we have an intense temperament, such are our vasanas. So it's the vasanas that determine our character, our temperament, and so on. And that we are responsible for. Prarabdha is only what we are given to experience. If we are surrendered, we will accept whatever we're given to experience without likes and dislikes. If we are not surrendered, we'll like some things, we'll dislike some things. We'll try to avoid the things we dislike, we'll try to get more of the things we like. And in that way, we create more and more fruit for experience in future lives. So what is predetermined is only what we are given to experience. How we react to it is according to our, as you say, it's according to our temperament, and our temperament is nothing but our vasanas. So, and we are free to, vasanas are inclinations. So we are free to act according to our inclinations or to not act according to them. In fact, throughout our life, we are constantly choosing which vasanas to be swayed by and which vasanas not to be swayed by, because we have innumerable vasanas that are constantly rising in the mind. And vasanas often pull us in the opposite directions. So we have the choice. Suppose a very simple example I often give. If someone is a smoker, they're a smoker because they've got a strong vasana, a strong inclination to smoke. But they may also know that smoking is bad for their health. If they continue smoking, they're likely to cut their life short. And even the life they have, they're likely to be unhealthy. So they may also have an inclination to be healthy. So they have two opposite inclinations. One is to smoke, another is to avoid smoking. They have the freedom either to be swayed by the vasana to smoke or to be swayed by the opposite vasana. This is just a simple example, but like this, moment to moment to moment in our life, so many inclinations, so many vasanas are rising in our mind, and we are the ones who are choosing which vasanas to be swayed by and which not to be swayed by. So the vasanas, the inclinations, they're often very powerful inclinations, but we have the freedom either to be swayed by them or not to be swayed by them. That is where the freedom of will lies. So we are not bound by our vasanas. That is how we can, if we avoid being swayed by our vasanas, they lose their strength. If we allow ourselves to be swayed by our vasanas, they gain strength. So the one good vasana is the sat vasana, the inclination to hold on to our own being. The more we hold on to our being, the more we are strengthening that sat vasana and weakening all the vishaya vasanas.
I think that tied it together for me. I think that sums up what I was getting at. So thank you for that
Thank you,
reply.
Stephen. Yeah, appreciate it. And Michael handled a lot of those questions very well. Michael, one quick observation, and you just gave maybe 10 minutes ago an example of how Ramana's teachings are extremely radical for the vast majority of people here in the West who come to follow his teachings.
East or West, it's all the same. It's only by, if we are drawn to his teachings, it's only by his grace.
Yeah. Well, when you pointed out something I learned on day one, I think, and I accepted it because I had done some spade work earlier, that our bodies and our minds are not real. And my point is, I'm still surprised. I've been on this path for a while, actually since 1989, to find people on this path who don't quite believe or accept that yet. I mean, it's fundamental, isn't it? I mean, it's radical.
It is fundamental, but it's there, but for the grace of God go I. It's only by Bhagavan's grace that we have the willingness to accept this. The vast majority of people are not, even among the devotees of Bhagavan, the majority of devotees of Bhagavan, they worship Bhagavan as a god, but very few are ready to think deeply about his teachings and understand the implications of his teaching and to try to put them deeply into practice.
And then, as we heard several times here today about the concept, the idea, the suggestion of praying to Bhagavan, I see it as praying to self. I mean, maybe I'm out on a limb too much being radical in my respect, but you're really addressing self over these concerns, are you not?
Yes, well, yes. What you call self is what we actually are, and that is Bhagavan.
There you go. Okay. You can have your cake and eat it too.
Bhagavan is nothing other than svarūpa.
Yeah, right. Two quick comments, if we can get quick questions. Actually, we've got three here. We may not get it. We've only got 15 minutes to go, and I have a hard out today at 12 noon, Port San Diego time. I've got grandchildren to meet for Christmas this afternoon after this. Lorraine, and then Zoom, and then Sri Ram, if we have time. So go ahead, Lorraine, if you could, with your question.
Hello, Michael. We've spoken a lot about prarabdhas and ego and personal abilities to have emotions. My question is, I'm not very good at Christianity, but one of these Christian stories that's always stuck in my mind is when Jesus went to the temple and he got angry because the traders were trying to make money within the temple. And I'd like to hear what you'd say about his energy at that time. I don't think it's ego or parabdas or whatever. I think it must be something else.
Well, I think if we accept that Jesus is an incarnation of God, if we accept that, then whatever actions he did, it's according to a divine plan. But that situation, the traders in the temple, go to any religious place of any religion. Go to Mecca, go to any holy place in India, any holy place in Europe, or any famous pilgrimage places. You'll find so many business people there. It's the nature of the world. But in that particular case, the traders were not just outside the temple, they were actually inside the temple hawking their wares. And that is, the religion had become so degenerate that this had become acceptable for people to be carrying on their business inside the temple. So to wake them up to the wrong of what they were doing, how they were turning what is supposed to be the house of God into the house of a den of thieves or something, I think Jesus said. He got that anger. That anger was, we can say it's according to a divine plan. If we accept that Jesus is an incarnation of God, then his action there's no ego there. So it can only be God who was acting through him.
So it was destiny, basically.
Well, if Jesus is destiny is for ego. When the ego has gone, there is no destiny. So it is only its direct divine will. But right. God appeared in the form of Jesus in order to show people the way to salvation, and to show them the wrong. But well, in that case, he was showing that this is not what religion should be about. It shouldn't be about doing business and trading things. It should be about surrendering oneself to God.
Divine intervention. Thank you very much.
Yes, right.
Okay, let's go to Vikas now. Make it brief and we'll get your answer for you, Vikas.
Yeah, thank you. Michael, you said regarding the vasanas, which are basically our own will through which it comes. But is it not that even the thoughts which we get is something that we don't even think of what thought will come to us, basically? Is it not the will of, is it not by the God's will that we get the thought and everything happens with the will of God? Then even the thought that comes to us to do certain thing, is it not also the will of God?
No, it's the thoughts are nothing but the sprouting of the vasanas in our mind. So the vasanas are what sprout in the form of thoughts. So the vasanas are our will, not the will of God. Sometimes God may allow certain vasanas to arise, but the aim of God is only to. God wants only one thing for us. God wants us to be happy. And happiness, true happiness, lies not in acquiring external things. There's no happiness in the external thing. True happiness lies only in subsidence. So God will sometimes, God is working deep within our heart, allowing certain vasanas to arise and not allowing other vasanas to arise. He allows those vasanas to arise to give us the opportunity to discriminate, but we shouldn't be swayed by these vasanas. We should subside back within.
Okay, Vikas?
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Thank you for joining us today.
Yeah.
Okay, Sri Ram, make it brief.
Yes, sir. Michael, beautiful. You said that the only freedom of the will is to execute vasanas as we choose between good and bad, or
Well,
sadvasana versus
it's not
vikaya
executing vasanas. It's which vasanas we allow ourselves to be swayed by.
Okay. So, and that's beautiful. And one thing I asked you, your prayer, you commented very well, that praying for somebody to get well, somebody to not die, is ultimately a selfish prayer. So is there an unselfish prayer? We ask for Shakti, Bhakti, and Mukti, strength, devotion, and liberation. Is that the only legitimate prayer to ask Bhagavan?
Shakti for what?
Shakti to stay on the path of self-inquiry.
Yeah, the power to subside back within. If we are praying for our subsidence in one way or another, praying for that is the power to subside, is the power of love. If we are praying for that, that is legitimate. If we are praying for anything, if we're praying for a change in what is happening outside, that is kamyata. So we need to distinguish the kamyata prayer from the nishkamyata prayer. Nishkamyata means not for the gratification of ego's desires, but just for the, we should pray only for the subsidence of ego.
Got that?
Yes.
Very good. Thank you. And
Michael, there's so many ways. If you read Bhagavan, Bhagavan's Aksharamlai, in how many different ways he's prayed, but the essence of all the prayers is praying for the love to subside. They all boil down to that.
Mm-hmm. Good. Michael, we have, I'm trying to shoehorn in possibly this last question. It might be best to hold it over till next month. The one from
again,
Bharath.
it's a long question.
Yeah, do you want me to read it or not read it? Let's hold it over. I like it a lot because it addresses the concerns of people who come into our group.
Okay, we've got just over, we've got more than 5 minutes. If you read it, I'll try my best to answer it.
All right. And if you can't, we'll hold it over.
Yeah.
So Bharath says something that a lot of people relate to, especially on the younger side of life. Since beginning Atma-vichara, my interest in career, wealth, and even relationships has waned. I feel that I am in an in-between phase, not fully grounded in worldly pursuits, nor fully established within. I sometimes wonder if the more I turn inward, the more I may be leaning towards a solitary life or making it harder to form a relationship, especially since it is rare to meet people with a similar inner orientation. Bhagavan advised seekers to practice self-inquiry while disposing of their worldly responsibilities, such as family, work, and obligations. But what about somebody who is yet to begin, who has not taken on major responsibilities in life? Is it right to keep turning inward and trust that Bhagavan will take care of the outward life as well? How does one discern which pole to follow, the inward pole that naturally draws the mind homeward, or the outward pole needed to first establish a stable life? In a world where most people complete the outer cycle of family and responsibilities before turning within, is it possible that I have begun self-inquiry too early? And finally, does one choose this path, or does the path choose them? Michael, I feel I'm caught between two worlds. Your insights and clarity on these questions would be very helpful, and to others as well, I would add.
Okay, well, the final question, do we choose this path, or does the path choose us? It seems to us as if we have chosen this path, but why have we chosen this path? Only by Bhagavan's grace. So ultimately it's by his grace that we are drawn to this path. The previous question, is it possible that I have begun self-inquiry too early? No, I think we've all begun far too late. We should have begun many, many lives ago. But we came to this life because we because we're all late beginners. But anyway, there's no such thing as beginning on this path too early, because this is the ultimate path. This is the path to go home. Nothing else matters, truly speaking, other than following this path. So there's no such thing as beginning this path too early. Regarding the paragraph in which you say, Bhagavan advised seekers to practice self-inquiry while disposing their worldly responsibilities such as family, work, and obligations. But what about someone who has yet to begin and has not taken on major responsibilities in life? Is it right to keep turning inward and trust that Bhagavan will take care of the outward life as needed? Yes, that is an answer to the final question. Whatever may be our circumstances in life, whether we have already got married and had 10 children and we've got innumerable responsibilities, or whether we have no responsibilities, the right thing to do is to keep trying to turn within and leave everything else to Bhagavan. He will certainly take care of the outward life as needed. If it is beneficial for us to get married and have children and everything, if those experiences are conducive to our if such circumstances will be conducive to our following this path, they will come automatically according to prarabdha. If they do not come, some people remain brahmachari, they remain celibate all their life, and they may even take sannyasa to a life of formal renunciation. Whatever it may be, it's all according to prarabdha, and Bhagavan is taking care of it all. As he said in the 13th paragraph of Nana, when one Parameshwara Shakti is driving all karyas, making everything happen as it's meant to happen, and making us do whatever is necessary to do, why should we, instead of yielding ourselves to it, be constantly thinking it's necessary to do like this, it's necessary to do like that? Leave it all to Bhagavan. Whatever be our outward, whatever is destined for us is going to happen. And whatever is destined for us is according to the will of Bhagavan. So leave the external, all concern about the external life to Bhagavan. Our only responsibility is to try more and more to turn within and thereby surrender ourselves completely to him. That is, the more we turn within, the more we subside. And that subsidence is surrendering to him. So that is that should be our only concern. Everything else he will take care of.
I'm encouraged to hear all that as much as I'm sure Bharath is. Bharath, it's unfair to you to have to cut us off at this point. So if you want, send to me personally other questions that you might want to ask based on the follow-up to having heard his answers. And I'll make sure we get to them next time, okay? You have to wait a year, though, till 2026. Michael, I want to tell you how grateful I am, and we all are. It's been a whole year of wonderful guidance from you with Ramana. I know.
If there's any wonderful guidance, it's not from me, it's from Bhagavan.
Yeah, I know. I should learn to put that first always.
Yeah,
first
well, yes. Bhagavan is the first and the last, the Alpha and the Omega.
So let me wish you, assuming it's meaningful on any level to you, a very Merry Christmas, a very spiritual time of the end of the year, and a Happy New Year. We're going to see you next on January 4th, 2026. Yeah. And I'll point out to the people here.
Okay, if you wish me a Happy New Year, where can I find happiness?
You don't need it because you need neither happiness nor pain.
No,
perfect perpetual
we
awareness.
need to find the happiness within ourselves by his grace.